So the other day we were talking about Gears of War 1 in 2025. If you haven't seen that video yet, go check it out. But today we got Gears of War 2 in 2025. 16 years later. This game originally was released in 2009 on the Xbox 360, and now you can play it, obviously, on the Series X, the Series S, and the Xbox One via backwards compatibility. The Series X version actually can be playable in 60 frames per second via the FPS boost feature that console has. So that makes the game even better in 2025, because as you guys know, all the classic Gears games were locked at 30 FPS, which at the time was kind of like whatever, because all the games back then were in 30 frames, but now kind of coming back to it, being used to 60 FPS and going back to 30 is a very jarring experience. And unfortunately, on this gameplay, this was in 30 FPS because I don't have a Series X. I have a fancy schmancy gaming PC, but I can't play this game on PC, so I had to go to the Xbox One. That being said, this game is still alive in 2025. There's still players online. And so if you're interested in the multiplayer aspect of the game, then you can obviously still play it. The single player is obviously always going to be there for you to play. If you're interested in the single player, though, I'll play Gears of War 1 first, because this game's story takes place right after that game. So if you don't play that, and you play this one first for whatever reason, then you're going to be confused and lost. Now, like I said in the last video, please forgive me, guys, for the, let's just face it, the shitty gameplay. I'm sorry, guys. I am brand new to the series and to these games, so I'm still kind of learning the mechanics and not knowing what the fuck I'm doing, so please forgive me. But at least on the surface level, it seems very similar to Gears of War 1. It obviously has different maps, different guns, and it is like a little bit different, but it seems to be like an improvement over Gears of War 1 overall in terms of the multiplayer. The player base itself, like I said, there are still people that are online, but you're only going to be able to play one game mode specifically, and that is Guardian. Ranked Guardian, to be specific. If you try to play a player match, you just get matched up against bots, so be mindful of that. It has to be Ranked Guardian. That's the only game mode that you'll find any players for in 2025. So if you weren't a fan of Guardian, if you enjoy the other game modes instead, like TDM, you're pretty much shit out of luck. People also don't really play the Horde mode anymore. So, yeah, kind of, you're not going to spend, even if you're a long-time veteran of Gears of War 2, you're probably not going to spend a whole lot of time just because there's a lack of game mode variety now. I mean, it's been 16 years, so it's normal for a game that old to lose a lot of its player base over time. And it's the same deal as Gears of War 1, that this is a US East Coast server. So if you're far away from that region, if you live, I mean, I think if you live in Western Europe, you might be okay. If you live in the West Coast of the United States, you might be okay. But if you live in, like, Eastern Europe or Asia, Australia, South America, then you're not going to be able to really play this game at all online, since it's your ping would be, if you even able to connect to the match in the first place, your ping will be so crazy that it's literally unplayable. Another thing I mentioned in the previous video, I mean, I'm mentioning a lot of things from the previous video because there are a lot of similarities between Gears of War 1 and 2 in terms of the player base and the overall situation online these days. Another thing is that Microsoft actually fixed the matchmaking for this game. So if you had negative experiences maybe a few years back, like in 2020, 2021, the matchmaking was completely broken. So you couldn't connect to a match, even if there were people that were actually like online and trying to play. It had something to do with the backwards compatibility, causing issues between the connection and the matchmaking. So Microsoft actually fixed that. They also fixed it with the old Call of Duty games because those games had similar issues as well. So that's good to know, just FYI, in case you had problems before and you didn't really try ever since. I think it was like 2022, I'd say, that they fixed the matchmaking, or maybe it was 2023. It was fairly recently, like a couple years ago, that all that got sorted out, which is great. But overall, Gears of War 2 is worth playing in 2025, probably for the single-player campaign alone. Then the multiplayer still exists, which is great. You're not gonna really have the same experience that you had in 2009, but it's still there. It's barely alive, but it's still kicking.